So we've got a Husqvarna YTH 22 V46. Customer has it in. They say when you go to turn the key, sometimes it turns over and sometimes it just kind of hums. So it doesn't do anything. The starter will not turn it over at that point. So first investigation here, I couldn't get anything at all to move. So I had the parking brake locked in. I went to turn the ignition and nothing happened. So I went ahead and diagnosed it as a bad solenoid, which I did go ahead and replace back here. So we've got a new solenoid in it. It's got a fresh battery, all the wiring's good. And I come over here to start it and it fires right up. So not a big deal there, but the only problem is I got to fire it up the next time. You got to fire it up the next time and all it gets is that. So I'm going to show you here what is going on and what the problem is, why this thing isn't turning. So as you can see here, the starter's been replaced. So somebody's replaced the starter, somebody's replaced the battery, somebody replaced the solenoid before. I just replaced it again, probably because they kept messing with it, maybe just drawing high amperage all the way down. So all of the stuff on the electrical system has already been done. So what we're going to go ahead and do, I've already taken the top and everything here off. I did still have the grate at the beginning of the recording. As soon as I started turning it over, it liked to fly off there, of course. So there's 3/8 bolts all the way around the outside. I think 3 on both sides. A couple bolts holding the fuel filter here on, and those are just little 5/16. And then there's a couple down through here that hold the air filter to the top cover. But nothing too hard to get this whole top cover assembly off, and you can kind of see exactly what's going on. So you can see new starter here. I'm not sure what exactly is going on with that, but you can see the starter gear is jammed up, and if I try to do anything, all it does is goes to that stop point and stops. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and pull the plugs out one at a time. Because when I go to turn this engine, all I'm seeing is very, very hard to turn. So as I'm doing this and trying to turn it over by hand, it's extremely hard to turn for me. So I don't care if it's a V-twin or if it's a single cylinder unit, that should not be hard to turn. It should be easy to turn over by hand. So we're gonna go ahead and take the plugs out one at a time here and see if we're having an issue on one side that's causing this to happen. And all you're doing is independently verifying each cylinder at this point. So with this plug out, there's no pressure back on the engine from that. So we got a good turn out of it, and then right back to the same old stuck way. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one back in. And you do want to make sure that you're obviously clear of the fan. If you don't want the unit to start, you can unplug both of the spark plugs. If you don't mind if it starts, you can unplug one or the other. It's not going to hurt it to run for a very short period on just one cylinder. Alright, so with that back in there, and go around to the other side. Pull this one out. Doesn't look too bad. So now as I hit this unit, every time I bump that key, that engine turns over perfectly fine. So we know that something on this side of the unit is causing the motor to kind of seize up and not do exactly what it's supposed to do. So we're going to open this valve cover here and see exactly what's going on. Get that a little bit further down for us. So it's just a 3/8 to open the valve cover there. A lot of times we use a 10mm 6-point. It won't spin, but you just seem to have a 10mm everywhere. So pull this side off. From that point, you'll have to use like a flathead screwdriver or something. I'm going to just kind of throw it down into the in between here and just slightly pry until that sealant comes out. So we've got the valve cover completely off there now. Right down to where your valves are. Oh, look at that. The pulse line is broken there, so we're going to want to replace that before we get everything back together. So we're going to go ahead and look at this and look at the valve spacing. So what it looks like we have going on here, possibly, is that the unit is not spaced correctly. So there's too much space. I can take this and I can move it back and forth. There's too much space in between the valves. So the unit is not allowing it to release the compression on this side and this side only as it's going over. So it's still got that back pressure from this side. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get the right size wrench here. I think it's a 12 or 13. Try a 12 here first. Nope, it's a 13, of course. Got us a 1/2 inch. I did the wrong one. So we're going to give this thing just a quick valve adjustment. Put it top dead center. ¼ pass. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set the valve clearance on that. We're going to do 0.006 on the intake and 0.008 on the exhaust. So we're on the intake right now. Before we were just at top dead center, but that's not, got to be way out at top dead center there. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but 1/4 inch past top dead center is where you always want to set these at. As I'm doing this, this definitely needs to go in quite a ways. Figure out what size T that is. Looks like it may be a T40. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. I'm going to loosen that nut so I can get a little bit further in there. Tighten that up where we're good. And then we're just going to tighten this down to match that nut. All right. So goes in there. It's kind of tight, but that's where we want it. Right at there. All right, so that's the 0.06 for the intake. We're going to do 0.08 for the exhaust. And it's not extremely bad on the exhaust side. We're still going to set it. sure you get that plenty tight, because if you don't get your nut plenty tight enough there, these will back off. So all right, everything is good. Now, just for video purposes, I'm going to go ahead and put this valve cover back on here, and we're going to test this again. Normally, anytime you have this cover open, especially, you know, in this case, there's pretty much no sealant left. So you're going to have to scrape that off and either do new sealant on there or go ahead and do the valve cover gasket like most people do. But, oops. Right, go ahead and throw this plug back in. And if you think for any reason that the plugs are not up to par, that there's anything wrong with them, obviously this is a very good time to replace them. Alright, I'm going to put these plugs back on and see what we got. Okay, so now what we're having here is that with those valves just adjusted a tiny bit closer, this side is not locking up like it was before. That low speed compression release is able to release there, and it's able to, while this thing's going slow, it's able to turn the unit over. So while this guy completely replaced the whole electrical system trying to diagnose what was going on with this, the real problem the whole time was just a valve that was not adjusted quite properly, that was giving it back pressure, causing it not to start. So in closing here, before you end up going down the rabbit hole of chasing a starter, a battery issue, or something like that, make sure that you can turn the engine over by hand. So if you can turn the engine over relatively easily by hand, then you know your starter is going to be able to turn it over. It should not be a struggle. You know, I mean, this thing should turn and turn and turn. And I mean, there's going to be some hard spots on the compression stroke for sure. But it should not be. Before, when I was trying to turn it, I had to really put some oomph into it. Now you just kind of pull on it a little bit, and yeah, there's that compression stroke, but overall, it turns over easily by hand. So we're going to go ahead and get the valve cover gasket done for him. Get this thing all cleaned up, put back together. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.